Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you all with us for the first series, for the first session in the series. We're very grateful to have Nikki Chapman with us today, who's going to be taking us through the story, Harry, the Hammerhead Shark Spreads the Good News, the start of the journey, but it's still a long way to go. And she will also be sharing a bit of insights into the process and some of the discoveries along the way. If you have any questions, either after the series or watching the recording, you're welcome to reach out to us at webinars@sscafrica.org.za. For now, I'm going to hand over to Nikki. So Nikki, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks for the intro. And welcome everyone to the webinar. I'm not going to confess that this is a space I normally play in. So forgive me, as it's my first live webinar, as well as my first time actually being the person to read the book out loud to anyone. But I hope you weren't, I don't know what you were expecting from attending this webinar today. But I'm really just going to give you a little bit of insight as to how we ended up with Harry the Hammerhead. And perhaps that journey will inspire you in the value of storytelling in terms of educating on marine, well, in our case, marine issues, but just in general, conservation or anything really. But it was really it's a long-term vision. The Harry the Hammerhead Shark Spreads the Good News. The idea behind the vision is to create a character that particularly the South African public, but preferably the global public, can come to recognize and appreciate and understand, a bit like Nemo or Dory, and to sort of empathize and sympathize and celebrate with the character. And grow up with the character in their hearts. So that's where the journey's going. The long-term vision is actually an animation, like a movie animation. And there's some sort of plans in place to get those wheels turning. Having worked on animations prior, not like professionally or anything like that, but in environmental education and using animation as a tool, I realized there was going to be a storyboard that needed to be made. And so while we were on the journey of a storyboard, I decided we might as well have some children's storybooks. And so it began, really. And the first book speaks to Harry's journey on the vision of the entire journey for Harry is that he's super excited that when in South Africa, when our new MPAs got proclaimed, that he was super excited about that, and he wanted to make sure that all his friends in the open ocean or in the ocean just knew how lucky they were to be in an ocean, or to be in an MPA, sorry. And of course, along the way, as he goes off to all the MPAs to share the good news, he encounters challenges and exciting things in and outside of marine protected areas. And the first book, keeping children's book in mind, and the design of a children's book, that's why it's going to be split into volumes, is, you know, the first book speaks to the KZN East Coast marine protected areas. Busy working on volume 2, which will then talk to the next stretch of marine protected areas in Ponderland. I am from the KZN East Coast, so it was a lot more familiar for me, the space, and I've dived the waters here a lot and did a hammerhead documentary, so kind of felt a lot more comfortable writing the first volumes. So the second writing children's books is takes a lot of research, so if you're committed, be committed. And then in terms of the children's storybook, for me, having, you know, not raised my own children, but raised some children in my home, you know, reading children's books have been the standard nighttime, bedtime procedure, and they have just so much value. But for me, a children's book has always been about the illustrations. You can actually be, in my opinion, a pretty bad author and still pull off a children's book if you've got good illustrations. But don't quote me on that, because I'm not a children's book writer or illustrator. I just happened to produce this book. And so I managed to convince a dear friend to participate in this journey with me. As you could see in the book, Charlene De Silva is our illustrator, and she is amazing to work with. She's very talented. This is also her first children's book, something she's wanted to always do. And she is also a marine scientist, so that also really helped. So yeah, so she's the beautiful illustrator. And then we decided that, well, I decided that the illustrations are way too beautiful to just be sitting in this book. So we came up with the coloring book to go alongside the book. So there's a storybook and a coloring in book that has the images just kind of in black and white. But this was all done through projects that I work in at the WILDTRUST. And we're developing an ocean literacy program in the trust, which is kind of threaded through all our projects. But in particular, we're working in communities in the Isimangaliso MPA and the Utugela MPA, but also in the Western Indian Ocean region. So the 4 MPAs in the Comorian and the Grand Comore. So that sparked the sort of support to get the book written and printed and published. And the 9,000 copies that we got printed are all for distribution in those communities, those 3 communities across those 3 projects. And it was very much supported through Oceans 5, Rainforest Trust, the Blue Action Fund, and the Shark Conservation Fund. And due to obviously the nature of the communities we're working in, we had the book translated. So it's available in Zulu and in French. There are some English copies. The English copies were quite popular in the general public, interestingly enough. So they are being made available as a trial for sale. There's not a lot available for sale, but there are a few. And there's, I think Tara is going to place in the chat box where you could purchase them online. But they are going to be in the 2 Aquaria shops, the 2 Oceans Aquarium and the Ushaka Aquarium shops. And there's 1 or 2 other small shops dotted across the country that, like Save Our Sea, not Save Our Sea, sorry, Shark Spotters, the book museum, a few other small shops have taken the book. So that's the journey, basically. I think you guys wanted to hear about that. So that's how it all came about, and that's where it's going. It's certainly not what I do full time. I wish I had more time. It took us over a year to do this book. So, you know, and I've only covered 5 MPAs. There's 42 MPAs. You can do the maths on how long it's going to take at that rate to produce all the volumes. And of course, we are fighting for, not fighting, but we are advocating for increased marine protection in South Africa. So, you know, Harry might have to turn around and do another journey after I've written the books covering these 42 MPAs. The idea, though, is that when Harry reaches each of the MPAs, because each of the MPAs are protected for various reasons, and that the book kind of has a way of illustrating that and showing, you know, for example, why is Protea Banks protected? Why is Alawal Shoal protected? Why is Utugela protected? What are the values of these MPAs? But bearing in mind, it is a children's book. It's supposed to be a bit fantasy. The children's supposed to get lost in the story and the character. But I do work with marine scientists. I'm not a marine scientist, and they always help to keep you level-headed and your stories factual. So if you don't have a copy of the book, there's also the book is also available free online as a flip book on the Shark Attack Campaign website. I can put a link in the chat box just now. So that's available in all 3 languages as a flip book, and the coloring book will be available downloadable PDF there as well, for anyone that wants to sort of run a session. Then I was going to say something there. So there's a story, but in each of the pages of the story, I'm trying to show you on the screen. Oh, it's not going to work because of my beautiful background. But there's like a fact box, and that is I'm not going to read those today, but they are there and they're available. And it's, for example, what is an MPA? What is a World Heritage Site? Some of the things that get referred to in the story that just kind of tells you a bit more depth, and it's a bit more for the adult reading the story. But it's a learning point. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna, if there's no questions at this stage, I think I'll just go ahead and start reading. Okay, so that's the cover. I worked with a publisher. I 100% recommend working with this publisher. They were amazing, super supportive. And yeah, I mean, this book just wouldn't be where it is without an illustrator and a publisher. And a lot of support from friends and colleagues. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to go next. It's not doing anything. Oh, no, okay, there we go. We gotta see if it stays. Okay, this is illustration 1, page 1. It's a brand new sunny day on the east coast of South Africa. Harry the hammerhead shark is swimming across the colorful seabed, enjoying the scenery, when Wendy the whale shark comes cruising by. Hey, Harry, she says, have you heard the good news? What good news? Asks Harry. South Africa has announced that we are getting 20 new marine protected areas, or MPAs for short, where the fish and sea plants can live safely, and they are planning to make some of the old MPAs even bigger, says Wendy excitedly. Harry knows quite a lot about MPAs. He spends most of his days in the isimangalisa MPA, one of the 5 MPAs on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. The Zulu people call it the place of miracles and wonder, and Harry agrees. And then on that page, there's a box that says, explains what an MPA is. Okay, carrying on with the story. 20 new MPAs, Harry asks Wendy, is that possible? It's true, she says. Harry flips with joy. This is the best news ever, he says. The isimangalisa Wetland Park, Harry's home, is an extra special place because it's also a World Heritage Site. This makes him so very proud. He is so excited that he decides to swim along the east coastline, visit all the MPAs along the way, and share the good news. He wants his many ocean friends to know how lucky they are to live in an MPA. Wendy, he waves his fin. He plans to visit the sealer camp first. They're his neighbors, yeah, in the isimangalisa MPA. Harry dives deep to find the underwater caves and canyons where the coelacanths live. He wants to share the good news about the MPA with his 4-legged fish neighbors. Harry knows the coelacanths that live in the caves. He thinks there's about 35, and he can tell them all apart as each of them have their own unique spot pattern. He soon bumps into Jessie, a particularly friendly coelacanth, who is enjoying a swim with Percy, a little pineapple fish. Jessie, I have such great news. Our isimangalisa MPA has been made bigger, and even the deepest parts of our canyons are now also protected. This means no one will be coming to bother you down here, says Harry. Jessie can't believe the good news. It's a miracle, she says. Percy told me about some oil rigs that he thought were moving closer. We were very worried. This has always been our home. My family has lived here since the dinosaurs roamed our planet millions of years ago. Thanks for the good news, Harry. Stay safe, calls Harry as he heads out of the caves. As Harry makes his way back up from the deep, someone with a very long pointed snout speeds past. Hey, Marty Marlin, slow down, calls Harry. Now I know why some people call you the Formula One fish. Have you heard the good news? Marty stops and turns back. Yes, he says. I have heard all about the new and bigger MPAs. I am very pleased. People in big noisy speedboats often hunt marlin fish like me. Now at least I can relax when I'm in the sanctuary of an MPA. Nearby, thousands of tiny fish are swimming together in a big, tiny, packed bait ball. Harry looks at Marty and smiles wickedly. I wonder if they're scared of you or me. Nwandle, a giant leatherback turtle, glides past. She has come all the way from the deep ocean to this beach to lay her eggs. the very same beach where she was born many years ago along the Isimangalisa coast. Hello, Nwandle. Have you heard the good news about MPAs? Asks Harry. Someone told me about this, she replies. Is it true? I hope so. There aren't many of us leatherbacks left. People used to drive on the beaches and crush our eggs, and poachers used to steal them too. Thankfully, people are not allowed to drive on the beaches in South Africa anymore. And with the new MPA rangers protecting our shores, perhaps your numbers will grow again, says Harry. The loggerhead turtle nests will be safer too, and the green and hawksbill turtles will be able to feed in peace on the coral reefs. That's great, calls Nwandle as she heads off to the beach. Harry swims south to spread the news. He sees ripples in the water and lots of bubbles. He knows there's a shark net nearby, and it seems that's where the bubbles are coming from. As he gets closer, he sees the problem. Loggerhead turtles, baby hammerhead sharks, and even very sad dolphin are all tangled up in the net. Cedric, a wise old saw shark, appears from the sand below. Harry cries out, Cedric, our friends are caught in the shark net. Please come help set them free. Of course I will help, says Cedric. Shark nets have killed so many of my family and friends. Then he uses his long saw-like snout to shake and cut the net until all the trapped creatures are free. Head to the MPA, Harry shouts after them as they swim free of the net. It's safer there. No nets allowed. Harry's next stop is Ultigella Banks, MPA. He is surprised to find a large, muddy and sandy area with fields of sea pens waving their feathery arms in the current and sea urchins everywhere. There are brightly colored rocky reefs covered with soft corals and sea fans and sponges and sea stars and crabs, as well as many fish of all sizes. These beautiful reefs are very different from those at Isimangalisa, where they are made up of hard corals, thinks Harry dreamily. Suddenly, he hears a tiny voice calling his name. Hey, Harry! Hi, Sandelia, said Harry, shaking his head. I didn't know seahorses lived here. It wasn't safe for us before, replies Sandelia. Huge, noisy boats used to come and fishing for prawns. They dragged their big nets over the sea floor, scraping the sands and soft coral reefs, breaking up all our homes and killing many creatures. But this is now an MPA, so we're all safe. That's what I was coming to tell you, says Harry. Harry's about to swim up when he notices Sandelia looking into his tummy pouch. What do you have there? Harry asks. These are my babies, says Sandelia proudly. They're growing fast, and soon I'll have to take them to the nearby estuary, which is a good nursery for young fish such as seahorses. He looks around later when they are big, and when they are big enough, they will come back to this coral reef where they'll feed on the muddy sea floor that is full of nutrients from the mighty Tugela River. There are also lots of places for my babies and all the young fish to hide here, safe from big fish like you. Yes, those baby rock cards behind you will be tasty when they get bigger, Harry teases. I suppose so, agrees Sandelia, but baby fish must be allowed to grow and have their babies too. There will be more fish for everyone. Harry continues his journey south and arrives at the amazing Allowal Shoal MPA. He notices a boat with people on it carrying strange equipment and long poles. What are they doing, he wonders. Let me go over and investigate. He approaches slowly, swimming near the surface and going alongside the boat to get a better look. Suddenly, he feels a tiny prick on one of his fins, and he wriggles with surprise. Then he hears the voice in the boat. I got him! Another one for our researchers to track and protect. Now Harry understands that, just like many of his friends, he has been tagged. Cool, he shouts. That didn't even hurt. Now I can show the scientists all the places that hammerhead sharks like to go. That will help them protect even more of my favorite ocean highway and hangouts. Harry is so excited about his tag that he swims straight into the famous Reggie Cave without even noticing. What a lot of traffic, he thinks, as ragged-toothed sharks swim past him in all directions. Hello, calls a voice. Harry turns around and there's Ruth, an old Reggie friend. Oh, hello, says Harry. What a lot of Reggies. Yes, explains Ruth. Everyone meets in the cave and scuba divers are welcome too. Sharks and rays are protected here because our cave is part of an MPA. So it's safe. So it's a safe meeting place. Welcome to our raggy party. Yay, says Harry as he does a double flip. Then he spots a diver with the camera and dashes off to get his picture taken. On his journey, Harry soon reaches a famous shipwreck called the Produce on the LOL Shell MPA. There are many colorful fish swimming busily about in and out this huge rusty hull. He waves to them with his fin. Hey, I haven't seen this many fish together for a long time. Hi, they shout back. Now that the MPA protects our part of the ocean, many of us have come to live here. This rusty old ship is a good place to meet and find food. Well, says Harry importantly, did you know that this MPA just got made bigger? Everyone cheers, and as Harry heads further south, they call out, thanks for visiting and sharing the good news. Now Harry heads for the Protea Banks MPA, a place he knows well, where at least 7 different kinds of sharks can be found. It's a good place to shelter and hunt for food in the deep reefs and underwater canyons. At certain times of the year, hundreds of adult scalloped hammerhead sharks travel from afar to meet here. And there's also the excitement of the annual sardine run, when huge shoals of sardines move up the coast, easy prey for hungry predators. A huge shadow passes overhead. Who's there? Harry calls out nervously. It's me, Jeremy. A great hammerhead shark says in a booming voice. Oh, Jeremy, good to see you again. Have you heard the good news? About the MPAs? Yes, I have, says Jeremy. Sharks are in danger because people fear us and try to kill us. I don't know why, he says sadly. Yeah, Protea Banks MPA, all sharks and rays are protected. Lots of us have tags, and we hope that people will start to understand us better and realize that we aren't interested in harming them. Snap, says Harry, flashing his own tag. A large float bobbing above the reef has caught Harry's attention. Hey, Jeremy, what's that? He asks. That's a telemetry station. That equipment hanging below the float, and there's equipment hanging below the float, and when you swim past it, it tells the researchers who tagged you that you've been here, Jeremy explains. Oh, that makes sense. So then they know which parts of the coastline we like best, and they can help then decide where the MPA should be placed. Yes, says Jeremy, we like to call the MPA shark sanctuaries, where no one can hurt us. Oh, look, there on the seafloor, there's a school of giant guitar sharks, also known as wedgefish. Let's see if they'll play us a song for us, he says, grinning. Can't stop, says Harry. I haven't finished delivering my good news yet, but I will visit again. As Harry heads further south, he hears some loud banging in the distance. Then he hears a long, sad call. It's Slingwengwe, the humpback whale. I've lost Katie, my calf, she cries. There were loud explosions in the ocean. She panicked and swam away from me. Oh no, says Harry. The noise from the seismic server being carried out by people on a ship, he explains. They want to come and pump oil and gas under the seabed. Well, with all these explosions and noisy ships passing overhead, we can't hear each other anymore. And now I've lost my baby, Slingwengwe cries in despair. As they are talking, baby Katie suddenly swims up next to her mom and snuggles under her chin. There you are, she says, overjoyed. Oh, Katie, I thought I'd lost you forever. Now stay close beside me, please. I have some good news for you, says Harry, and he tells them all about the new MPAs. So now there will be more places where you can shelter in peace. No more seismic surveys allowed. Yes, says Katie, and gives a big tail fin slap. Harry has swum hundreds of kilometers and has finally reached the Trafalgar MPA, which was established a long time ago to protect the many fossils found in this area. It is now connected to the Protea Banks MPA, which is a haven for sharks. Trafalgar MPAs are home to many kinds of seaweed and includes the shoreline with its sandy beaches and rocky areas. There are salt marshes here as well as freshwater wetlands in the neighboring nature reserve. Harry explores the area and discovers many fossils among the rocks. I wonder whose tooth that was, he asks himself as he spots a fossilized shark's tooth. But what Harry loves the most about this MPA is that all the local school children come here to learn about marine protected areas. These MPAs are important for keeping our ocean healthy. They benefit everyone, the sea creatures as well as the people, both now and in the future. That journey was fun, thinks Harry, but all the swimming has made me hungry. I think it's time to head off and catch a snack. That's the end. That's the back cover of the book.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It's great to hear the story and to see the lovely illustrations and hear all the different characters that are involved in the story. I don't see any questions that have come through in the chat yet, but for now, can you comment at all about any sort of response from the community after the kind of books have been translated? And I know you mentioned that you've been making a drive to sort of share the books with local communities that border around the MPA.
So I can't because the distribution hasn't happened yet.
I see.
So it's all happening in the new year. I can tell you it's been a challenge getting 4,000 books to the Comores. It was probably more expensive to ship books to the Comores than it was to print books. So yeah, just bear that in mind if you decide you want to do across the Western Indian Ocean items. But what we have done is developed what we call session packs that go with the book. So you could run a session that there's one, for example, on whales, there's one on coelacanth, there's one on sharks, there's one on what makes a Simangalisa special, what makes Trafalgar special, what makes and those packs are the teams on the ground are being trained on how to deliver those sessions and when they distribute the books. And so there's like a whole 9-week plan that goes with the book as well.
Okay, and is that being rolled out, in the Comores and sort of in KZN?
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were about to add to that.
No, I wasn't. No, that's fine.
Okay. And the partnership with the Comores, did that come about sort of based on previous work that you've been doing with them, or how did that develop?
Yes. So yes, we've been working with I was a project manager on the CPF project in the Comores previously, and been delivering with an NGO on the ground there called AIDA on the Marika toolkit, which is a fabulous toolkit around coral reefs and marine protected areas. So this book complements that toolkit basically. That toolkit is developed and delivered by IRD, which is another NGO. So we work with them. I see in the chat box someone's asked about translation. So it has been translated into Zulu and French so far.
Okay. Are there plans to expand the language options in the future?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I have had a request. Well, I've had an offer from someone to put it in Xhosa. But we don't as of yet. So it's not an impossibility. It's more around what is the value. We don't work. At this stage we don't have any on the ground projects in Xhosa communities, so there wasn't a value for us. But it doesn't mean that there isn't a value for the book. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what to do because we have a lot of languages in this country.
It certainly would be sort of great to have it available in multiple sort of African languages, just in terms of distribution, and especially if you're looking to sort of make it a series with different MPAs around South Africa. Yeah, I think that would be great to sort of have all communities of different languages have access to the different books in their the tongues. You spoke a bit earlier about ocean literacy. Can you comment at all about sort of the work that you've been doing in that, and sort of and maybe sort of for those who aren't familiar with the term, is it sort of specifically based on literature, or just kind of ocean awareness of sort of ocean resources?
So really it's just the ocean literacy program is really just about helping the younger generations understand marine concepts as a language. You grow up and then everyone's talking about pelagic and all these big ocean words that are just not in your terminology. So ocean literacy is really just about understanding the literacy of the ocean, especially having worked in the Comores, which is an island state where being very aware that even the children there do not speak the language of the ocean. You know, they don't know all their fish, or they don't understand what open ocean is, or pelagic is, or any of these terminologies. So it's about bringing more of that into their vocabulary and understanding, you know, as a daily thing. So, but I guess it's just another way of saying marine environmental education. But so we developing programs around that, and that's where those session packs come in. So I have session packs on all sorts of things being developed, but the ones we're focusing on at the moment are the ones that link to the book.
Okay, and then we have had a comment in the Q&A box saying that they love the book. Maybe you already mentioned this, but what specific age group are you targeting with the book?
It's such a difficult question. It is sort of aimed at like 6 to 8, but bearing in mind the communities that we're working in, yeah, it's a challenge to like really pin an age. So you know, if this was going off to a child who's in a private school, you know, it's very different to a rural school. So it's quite a large age. I just want to see if I can find the link quickly for you guys for the flip book online.
I see. We did post the link in the chat box to order the book online. I believe that's to order sort of a hard copy. And then we do have perfect. And then we do have another question in the chat that says, thank you, Nikki. Enjoyed the story and love the illustrations. In addition to working with marine biologists, did you also get input from teachers in South Africa and the Comoros? And did you consider school curricula to help develop the story?
Nope, that wasn't considered, but not that it wasn't considered, but no, didn't consult any teachers. There's actually a different vision. As I said, it was more around the animation, and the stories were kind of, the books were kind of like a shoot off from the vision. However, having said that, watch this space, because it actually is being pitched to the department in January as a curricular book. So maybe it'll make it in.
I see. That'd be very exciting, and I'm sure that will sort of help with access and spreading the word, and hopefully lead to sort of some future sequels for Harry and his friends around the South African coast. I see. I believe you're still. Are you still looking for the link?
I am.
Okay.
It's for some or other reason I have the. I don't know what's going on. I just have the worst internet right now, although I'm on Zoom, so
that's no problem. We can include the link to purchase the hard copy and the link to the digital flip book in the YouTube captions, cool. So we can make those available there as well. And then any suggestions for any other accidental authors who are perhaps working on working on sort of marine stories and sort of a good way? Any suggestions on how they could spread their messages, and any lessons that you've learned perhaps from the publishing process? I know you've mentioned that it wasn't necessarily designed to be a school book or sort of maybe sort of less of an education resource, more a story. So can you give any advice or lessons learned around that?
Yeah, I can actually. My first advice would be just do it. Don't progress. You know, I had this idea from long before I actually sat down and did it. And if you saw my first draft to what we have now, it's, you know, it's they talking cheese. And my second advice is actually from the publisher, is involve the publisher from the idea phase, because they're actually really great, and it's much harder for them to help you construct when you've already. They don't want you to come with a ready to print version. They actually want to help you through the process. So just go to them with the idea. The difference, I guess, is, and if you've got an idea, so we've done it differently. We paid through the whole way. I mean, projects support funded the process. So if you have funds to fund the process, that's different. If you're going to them with an idea where you're wanting them to publish and, you know, retail and you earn, I don't know how it works, royalties, I think. then you really have to have a winning idea. But I'm sure if you have a really winning idea, they're willing to hear it. Look, they're willing to hear anything, to be honest. So, and they have a committee. Well, the publisher I worked with, I don't know how all publishers work, but they have a committee that they present to every month, and then ideas that they like up get taken up and rolled forward. So my advice would just be go for it. What's the worst could happen, really? I mean, I'm sure, Tara, you could probably mention the other book that that Nazi published through SST. I mean, she also just did it, and it's great. And that wasn't, it wasn't. I don't know the story actually. Maybe you want to share it, but I can say that it wasn't. What's the word I'm looking for? I think you guys just had a print ready version that you just went to go into a printer and got printed.
So the story is the story of Annalisa and her heavy plastic bag, and it's with the focus on sort of waste production within a community. It's a great story. It's also been sort of really nicely illustrated, and Nosy, who you know, who used to work at SEC, has done an amazing job with that. We are hoping to sort of showcase that a bit more. We're in the process of having some more printed. So once those are available, then we're looking to promote that a bit more. But yes, hers was also a case of sort of developing the story and that, and then working with illustrators, and then sort of working on the publications side of things. But I understand what you mean about not sort of working on it sort of being perfect from the get-go, and sort of rather having a starting point and taking that somewhere rather than procrastinating for perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we do have I see we do have both of the links in the chat box, so we will include that in the comments of the in the YouTube caption, just so that people are able to access those going forward. And then I don't see any other comments or questions in the Q&A box or in the chat, but if anyone has any comments at a future stage, perhaps watching the YouTube video, you're welcome to email us and we'll pass those along to Nikki. I'm sure there'll be a few questions coming in at a later stage, but for now I think we can close off the session here today. I see it is nearly 22. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It was wonderful to have you here with us for the first session in our series, and a special thank you, Nikki, for joining us and taking the time to share the wonderful story with us and spread the good news. Yeah, it's great to see the book and how it's taking off, and we are eagerly hoping that things go well in January in terms of the community rollout and the pitch for the departments and making it a resource there.
Thank you. Thanks, and thanks for having me, and thank you everyone for listening and joining.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hope to see you at our webinars in the future. You can check the Sustainable Seas Trust events page for links for future sessions. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.